Welcome back to Level 6 Math. Today we are looking at Lesson 30, Least Common Multiples, and we're looking at reciprocals. Two big, important concepts. This might be my favorite lesson we do all year. It's definitely one of the top 5. This is such a useful lesson, and so pay attention as we go through it. We're going to start by least common multiples. This is basically, it gets confused a lot with greatest common factor. Factor and multiples are different things. Remember, multiples are the numbers that it can go into. So we practiced that back in lesson 25, I think, going through multiples, like multiples of 2 are 2, 4, 6, 8. Multiples of 7 are 7, 14, 21. Well, if we take two numbers and we look at all their multiples, like in multiples of 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and then we look at multiples of 3, 3, 6, 9, 12, and then we circle the ones that are in common. So both of these have multiples of 6, both of them have multiples of 12, both of them have multiples of 18. We see that those 6, 12, and 18 are common multiples. What's the least? What's the smallest number of those? 6. So that 6 would be the least common multiple of 2 and 3. Not too tricky, but it's going to require some practice. What's the least common multiples of 3 and 4? So again, let's go ahead and find all the multiples of 3, all the multiples of 4, at least for the first 4 or 5, so we can see if there are common multiples. So with 3, we've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. With 4, we can go to 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. We see here the least common multiple, the smallest one is 12. So really, if we do a few numbers out on each of these and find that they both have 12, we don't need to keep going on both of them. We know the smallest, the least, is 12. Now you'll notice a pattern here. If we do 3 times 4, that's 12. On the last one, if we multiplied them, that gave us the least common multiple. That doesn't always work, so you can't rely on just multiplying them to find the least common multiple. So what about this one? Common multiples of 2, well, multiples of 2 are 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. Multiples of 4 are 4, 8, 12. Well, if we just did 2 times 4, that would give us 8, but that's not the least common multiple because 2 goes into 4. So the least common multiple is actually 4 in this case, so you can't always just multiply the two numbers. Okay, now that's least common multiple. You'll get to practice that in your homework. Now we're going to move forward into reciprocals, and I love reciprocals. We're going to use these a lot the rest of the year. They've become so helpful in doing certain things. So reciprocals are two numbers whose product, so if you multiply those two numbers together, it equals 1. So if we're solving for a whole number, using reciprocals is so helpful. Okay, so for example, the numbers 2, which is 2 over 1, and 1/2, 2 times 1/2 equals 1. So they're reciprocals. 2 and 1/2, they're reciprocal. We'd say that 2 is the reciprocal of 1/2, and that 1/2 is the reciprocal of 2. Sometimes we want to find a reciprocal of a certain number, so if we want to find like the reciprocal of 3, we simply flip it upside down. So 3 over 1, we can just switch it over, and it'd be 1/3, because 3 times 1/3 equals 1. So that's a good way to think about it. Reciprocals answer questions like this. How many 1/4ths are in 1? Well, we know if we have a pie and there's a fourth, and a fourth, we know that there's 4. So this makes sense in our mind. But the other way you can do it is just say, what's the reciprocal of 1/4? 4 over 1, which is 4. And so the reciprocal of 1/4 is 4. Fractions have two terms, your numerator and denominator. To form the reciprocal, we're simply reversing those. 3/4, the reciprocal of 3/4 is 4/3. All right? And we know it checks out because when we multiply it, 3 times 4 is 12, 4 times 3 is 12, 12 over 12 is 1. So it's always going to equal 1. So how many 2/3 are in 1? Another way of saying that is, what's the reciprocal of 2/3? Just flip it upside down, and you get 3 over 2. And so there's 3/2. How many 2/3 are in 1? 1.5. 2/3 are in 1, which makes sense because 2/3 is more than a half. So if you do that plus a half of another 2/3, so that'd be 3/2, that would equal 1. What number goes into this box to make it true? Basically, it's asking what's the reciprocal of 5/6. Just flip it upside down, we get 6/5 equals 1. Reciprocals are so awesome and so easy. So great. So wonderful. All right, what's the reciprocal of 5? Remember, 5 is the same as 5 over 1. So you just flip that upside down. 5 over 1 would be 1 over 5. So our reciprocal is 1/5. It's saying we can write 5 as 5 wholes, 5/1. Yeah, the reciprocal is 1/5. It doesn't matter what you say. that's it. So not a real tricky lesson, but we're going to start using reciprocals a lot. So that's really awesome. And we'll use least common multiples from time to time, as well as greatest common factors. So we'll review that too in the future. But great lesson for today. Have fun doing your homework.